Welcome everyone to Season 2 of the PDC Racing League, coming to you from the Okayama International Circuit in Japan, the opening 2 races of a 10-race championship across the next 5 Friday nights, with an even bigger grid than we had for Season 1. And therefore, we are very much expecting even higher levels of competition. It was a fantastic debut season for the PDC Racing League, which concluded a couple of weeks ago. And hot off the heels of those first 10 races, we're back again now for the second season with lots of the old favourites returning, including our reigning champion, but lots of new names also hoping to add themselves to the list of PDC Racing League champions. My name is Andy McEwen. I'll be your commentator for this evening and indeed the rest of the season as we take in racetracks in Japan, the UK, America, across the world. We will be racing in the Skip Barber Formula 2000 cars. And I am very, very much looking forward to getting straight into the action with qualifying for this opening round, only a few minutes away. Here is a look at the racetracks we will be visiting in Season 2 of the PDC Racing League. Only one of these 5 tracks has actually been retained from Season 1, so lots of new circuits for the drivers to get their head around, including the season opener here at Okayama. We then head to Alton Park, which is the one track that they have some experience at from last season for rounds 3 and 4. Then to America and the California circuit at Laguna Seca for the halfway mark of the championship. Then back to the UK for the Donington Park National Circuit, and the Charlotte Roval will be another new circuit to round out the season. The circuit that makes use of both the mile-and-a-half speedway at Charlotte, North Carolina, and the infield road course as well. And that will be a perfect setting, I think, for a dramatic championship decider. So here's what we've got to look forward to tonight then. We have a free practice session taking place right now. That has about 7.5 or so minutes remaining. Then we dive into qualifying, a 5-minute qualifying session, which will set the grid for the opening race of the night. There are also points available for qualifying, which we'll get into a bit later on. So that will be the opportunity for one driver to seize an early championship advantage. Then we head into our first race, a 20-minute race to kickstart the championship. That is due to get underway at about 8:15 UK time, before a brief break between the 2 races whilst everyone shifts servers. Another 20-minute practice session will fill the void as we swap over from one server to the other before another qualifying session of 5 minutes to set the grid for race number 2, which is the slightly longer 30-minute race. So 2 races coming your way. The first one 20 minutes, the second one 30 minutes. The same points available though for each race, and all of the drivers, I'm sure, are eager to get their season started off in the strongest possible fashion with a big points haul here on the opening. Essential actually for winning a championship, because Ian Bailey, who was a championship contender in Season 1, actually only competed in 4 of the 5 meetings, and he was right up there. Ben Leach only did 2 race meetings actually, and he was 4th in the championship. But I think with the extra level of competition in Season 2 for the PDC Racing League, consistency is going to be key. You really want to be up at the sharp end through all of the races. Well, this man was at the sharp end more often than he wasn't last season. It is our reigning champion, Dan Blake, who snatched the title away from Ian Bailey and Gavin Johnson in the final rounds of the season last year at Donington Park. And he is therefore carrying the prestigious number 1 along his Year 1 racing livery car. And he'll be hoping, I'm sure, that that's not a bit of a curse running the number 1. It sometimes can be that way for drivers that win the championship and desert their regular number, in Dan's case number 27, to run the number 1 on their car. But Dan is a very, very rapid racer, both in iRacing and in the real world, so I'm sure he's up to the challenge. In this practice session, he is 4th quickest at the moment, but the times are just as tight as they usually are, just 0.3 of a second covering the top 4 and the top 9 cars, all separated by 1 second in this free practice session. It's a decent length track as well, 2.3 miles around the Okayama circuit. At some point before the night's over, I'll get that right as well. Okayama, the venue for tonight's 2 races, and over such a lengthy lap, the fact that the lap times are already as close as they are bodes well for some really good racing, I think. With a big grid of cars, we're already seeing over 20 cars in the session. In fact, 26 drivers have joined the session, 25 of whom have set a lap time, and that is pretty much already a record, I think, for entrants. The grid built steadily over Season 1, so we were at our largest grid by the time we reached Donington Park for the last rounds of Season 1's championship, but we've jumped straight in here for Season 2 with an even bigger entry, and lots more potential race winners and podium finishers and championship contenders are amongst them. Well, fastest in the practice session for what it's worth, with a late improvement actually, is Ian Crosby, 0.3 of a second clear of anybody else now. We're following him through the first quarter in the Specsavers liveried car. I think you can see exactly where he's going though, can Ian Crosby. He is going very quickly and he's heading down the back straight here at the Okayama circuit. On board now with the fastest man in the session, but Dan Blake jumps into second place, just 2/10 behind him now. Carl Jacquelet goes third, whilst Gavin Johnson, runner-up in last year's championship, is fourth, and David Ward rounds out the top 5. But I remind you, no points being awarded just yet, and the qualifying session that comes up in the next 5 minutes or so, that is when they have a chance to score some points. 10 points for pole position, all the way down to 1 point for 10th place on the grid. And then in the races, 35 points for a race victory. So those race wins are very valuable, but if you dream that there will be 10 qualifying sessions over the season, well, that's 100 points you can score just from qualifying, let alone from the races themselves. There is the RS liveried car of Gavin Johnson working his way around the middle part of the lap by the looks of it, just coming towards the final sector now. And right behind him, now that's a car that I'd like a closer look at. That's the Yearone Formula 1 liveried car. One of my favourite liveries in all of motorsport there, the yellow car just behind Gavin Johnson. And who's the wheel of that? Oops, there's a spin anyway. One car into the barriers in the background. Part of the challenge, not only for drivers, but also commentators and TV producers at the start of a new season, is figuring out who's who. And lots of new liveries. That's Alan Toon there with a very nice Martini livery on his car. It might take us just a while to get to grips with exactly who is in which car. Adam Southgate, another new name, Porsche champion in the UK, one-make racer Adam Southgate, looking to maybe turn to some single-seat racing here in the Skip Barbers for this PDC Racing Series. David Ward has gone around. David is 5th in the session at the moment. He's just had a rotation going up through. Whereabouts was that on the track? I think that was at turn 4, the Atwood curve. Yes, it was. The leading out onto the Max Straight. David Ward joined, but he has not, unfortunately, been able to improve, of course, on this most recent lap. Oh, Michael Seal as well. We're doing very well at cutting to drivers that are having big moments here in our search to try and find out who's in that Jordan liveried car. That's the Ginsters liveried machine of Michael Seal, having a big spin there going through the right-hander. Michael Seal is 15th in the times right now, and again, not likely to improve for the time being. That's a sort of Tom Ingram BTCC inspired livery adorning the number 61 car. Last season, he had 10 races again, and we had 6 different winners in Season 1, so I think there's every chance we could see that figure broken again in Season 2, given the extra drivers we've got racing with us now. 14 drivers scored podiums, and 20 drivers were in the top 5, so it really was wide open in Season 1. It was a brilliant start to the PDC Racing League, a new initiative of Pip Hammond's and Gavin Johnson's, both of whom will be in the field tonight. Gavin Johnson is 4th, Pip Hammond's 7th quickest at the moment in the session. Driver with the most wins, though, was Ben Leach, and sadly can't make it tonight, but hopefully he'll be racing with us at some point in the future. And he won 3 races, also had 3 pole positions as well. But all of his race wins came from pole. He had to do some fighting to get through the field in Season 1, did Ben Leach. And that meant that despite only doing less than half of the championship, he still managed to come home 4th in the points. Hewitt here in the Fast R car, the orange number 17, a driver that Yearone Racing TV viewers may be familiar with because he seems to be popping up everywhere these days, but most recently we saw him racing in the Power Max Racing E-Series, and Freddie Hewitt in this particular session is just about in the top 10. In fact, he is in 10th place, but 1.3 seconds off the pace. That session has now completed, so straight away we move into qualifying, and this is it then. 5 minutes to decide who's on pole, who scores the points, and who takes the early championship lead for what it's worth. Maybe early in the season to be thinking about points, but with only 10 races, it's never really too soon for drivers to be thinking about their points that are being accumulated. And so all of them will be looking to try and set the best lap time, not only for good grid position for the race, but for a good points haul as well here from the opening session, the opening competitive session anyway, point scoring session of the season. Following Sam Holman then in the number 31 car, just behind one of the Year 1 racing cars, which I think is the first car in the queue. And it wouldn't surprise me I was going to say that's Dan Blake. It might not be Dan Blake because it is Dan Blake that's just on his way. I was about to say it can't possibly be our reigning champion Dan Blake because that's a bit of a rookie error on cold tyres that he's just made. But Dan has just had a quick spin as he tried to get the tyres up to temperature there, going through the fourth turn, the Atwood curve. And then off down the back straight towards the hairpin at turn number 5. This is where we'll see a lot of overtaking, I think, in the races later on tonight, because slipstream affecting these cars is pretty significant. We saw that last season too, that if you've got a long enough straight and you're close enough to the car in front, you can quite easily slipstream up to the back of them, pull out, pass them and clear them before you hit the next braking zone, and that's what we'll see a lot of, I think, down that back straight. That's almost certainly going to be the best overtaking opportunity on the track, realistically. A lot of the other corners sort of lead directly into other corners, making it difficult to execute and complete a move, but unless, of course, the driver in front makes a mistake, which is not unheard of, especially given how close the racing is. Drivers are often under a lot of pressure for sustained amounts of time, and that can lead to a few little errors. Of course, shuffles the order all the time. More than with Dan Blake already having to dodge cars. He did well dodging cars at Donington Park, I seem to remember, in qualifying sessions at the end of season 1. Speed building then we ride on board with the reigning champion as he starts his first flying lap of the session. Now, with lap times up in the sort of 1 minute 40s, they're not going to get that many laps in during the 5 minutes. So this will be a frantic session. We'll follow on board with Dan for the time being, though. He heads through turn number 2. This is Williams, and then into the Moss S's, this sort of left, right, left sequence, which should be easy flat out in these 2-litre skip barber Formula cars. They are, but then you've got to pick your line and pick your braking point into the Atwood curve, turn number 4. Slightly banked, you can see, but he's carrying a bit too much speed in there, trying to keep the momentum up, but just misses the apex slightly. There are 2 cars just in front of him that Dan will be trying to get a slipstream from if he can. Might not quite be close enough, though. He's probably a good second or so behind those 2. Hope, of course, is that he gets a slipstream, but that he doesn't get so close to them. They start to delay him through the infield section, which we're approaching now. On the brakes into turn number 5, the hairpin. One of those cars possibly is Gavin Johnson. The white car seems to have the RS logo down the side. Left-hander, these 2 90-degree left-handers at Revolver and Piper. Then the slightly tighter left-hander at turn number 8. This is Redmond, which is quite a 180-degree corner, but it's probably about 150 or 60 degrees to the left, and then back to the right for the final 3 turns. Turn number 9 is Hobbs, which is an equally tight right-hander, and then 2 90-degree right-handers through the Mike Knight corner at turn 10, and then the inventively named last corner at turn number 11, which we're approaching now. And Dan Blake, what sort of lap time has he set? The benchmark at the moment is set by David Ward, 1 minute 50.9. We should get underneath that time pretty rapidly, though. Dan Blake about to come through. Carl Jacquelet goes quickest temporarily with a 146.5. For David Ward, a 146.8, but Dan Blake, you were riding on board with him whilst he set a time good enough for provisional pole, a 146.37, but now he's beaten by Chris Knox, the Triple Eight car. There he is, the John Player Special liveried car, sliding its way through turn 1 with a 145.7, though. That is nearly 7 tenths quicker than Dan Blake. A remarkable time, that, from Chris Knox. Dan Blake second, Jacquelet third. Kyle Power is a new name to me in the 666 car, and he's just jumped into 4th place ahead of Gavin Johnson to round out the top 5. Kyle Power is a kart racer and a regular panellist, apparently, on the Missed Apex podcast. So perhaps if he ever decides to have a break from the racing, we can invite him into the commentary box, because he appears to have the gift of the gab and appears to be a pretty handy driver, because he's just jumped onto the second row of the grid provisionally. And of course, now the drivers will all have temperature into their tyres. They'll be starting to get quicker and quicker. Oh, contact! That is Chris Knox, I think. There was exiting stage left after contact, possibly from Ben Bateman, the orange and black car, who then proceeds to run to the back of Gavin Johnson. So Ben Bateman making friends here in this qualifying session. But as you can see, the time has already elapsed. The checkered flag is out. So as long as you're on a lap, you can finish it. But most drivers, I think, are only on their second flying lap. So it really is almost a one-shot qualifying session. You get one banker lap and then one real push lap at the end of the session to try and snatch pole position. Well, Chris Knox has already bailed out, understandably. He's in the pit lane. So our pole sitter is not going to improve. But then he does have a 0.67 second advantage over everybody else. Dan Blake is second at the moment, with Jacqueline third, Kyle Power fourth, and Gavin Johnson fifth. We're following Johnson through the last corner now. And David Ward goes to pole position with a 1:45.67, and Dan Blake goes second as well. So Chris Knox has already been dumped from pole position. In fact, he's been dumped from the front row altogether. David Ward, 2/100ths of a second quicker than Dan Blake, who was 1/100th quicker than Chris Knox. So it's all very tight at the top. Pip Hammond has gone fifth quickest as well for his final lap of the session. Kyle Power is in sixth. Southgate there we're watching is seventh, the quickest. Gavin Johnson's been dropped down to eighth place. Freddie Hewitt goes sixth, in fact, so that's already out of date. Hewitt sixth drops Southgate down to eighth, Johnson ninth, and Roger Morton is rounding out the top 10. No, he's not, because Ian Court improves at the end as well and goes into 10th place. Marcus Weller goes sixth. Lots of late improvements in this qualifying session within the top 10, including the front row of David Ward and Dan Blake, both of whom made really good late improvements. I mean, Dan Blake improved his lap time by about 7/10 of a second, so he really picked up some time between laps 1 and 2. And it's not quite going to be enough in the end to get pole position, but it will put him on the front row of the grid. And David Ward and Dan Blake will share that front row for our 20-minute race coming up very shortly. Interesting session then. And David Ward gets the pole position with Dan Blake alongside on the front row of the grid as the drivers start now to prepare for the 20 minutes of racing. Once everybody's completed their last lap, the grid starts to be formed, but I'm pretty sure everybody has now completed that second lap. Indeed, the session's over now. So David Ward then with the pole position, Dan Blake alongside him on row 1. Chris Knox and Carl Jacqueline make up row number 2, whilst Pip Hammond and Marcus Weller are on row 3. Freddie Hewitt and Kyle Power share the 4th row, with Adam Southgate and Gavin Johnson to round out the top 10. And that is your championship top 10 now, because they have locked in their qualifying points. 11th place, the first person not to score points, is Ian Court, with Roger Morton in 12th on the 6th row with him. Row 7, Fred Cooper and Michael Seal. Row 8, Ben Hansey and Ben Bateman. And row 9, Doug Hamilton and Dale Bennison, whilst the top 20 are rounded out by Alan Toon and Phil Law. Ben Bateman and Alex Hall are next, then Ian Crosby and Sam Holman, with Danny Henney, Alex Van Geen and Kevin McGlone rounding out the top 10. The field, the top 27. So 27 cars have qualified already. The grid is starting to form, and we are about to go racing for the first time in Season 2 of the PDC Racing League here from the Okayama International Circuit. And this 2.3 mile track about to play host, I think, to 2 very, very exciting races. 20 minutes then the duration for round number 1 of the championship. Just waiting for the first couple of drivers to arrive on the grid. And I think it's Pip Hammond, who is one of the championship organisers, so he's maybe a little bit busy on some official business as we wait for the... there he is, he's on the grid now, so Pip Hammond on the grid. The lights therefore start to illuminate. We're about to go racing in the PDC Racing League with David Ward in the pink car on pole position, the green and pink of Dan Blake alongside him. The lights go out, away they go. The rush towards the first corner begins. It looks like a decent start by both of the front row drivers, but David Ward trying to come across to the inside to defend his lead into turn number 1, which he will do successfully. Dan Blake second, round the outside goes Chris Knox in third position, the black car, and then the second of the green and pink Year 1 racing cars in fourth is Carl Jacqueline. Pip Hammond in 5th. There's contact further back, I believe. Ben Hansey possibly has been involved. Yeah, he's dropped 8 positions from where he started, but the leaders are all starting to group together already. The slipstream is bunching them up as they head through the Moss S's down into turn number 4, outward curve, and Chris Knox dives up the inside of Dan Blake for second place, almost ran into the back of the race leader. They're all slow off the corner as a result, and here comes the 4th place man, Carl Jacqueline, to make it a 4-way scrap down the back straight for the first time of asking. They're almost 3 abreast for the race lead, but it will be the pole sitter David Ward that hangs on. Dan Blake goes from the outside of the track to the inside. Look at the power of the toe. He was nowhere near alongside the leader at the start of the straight, but he's almost in the lead by the time he hits the hairpin. Feels out of it though. It's Ward that's latest on the brakes. He hangs on side by side, still behind him though, between Dan Blake and Chris Knox. They're almost three abreast as they go to the left-hander at Revolver. Dan Blake can't find his way back in line. Finally, he finds an apex through the 7th turn, and he is in line once again in P2. But that was a breathtaking opening half a lap of racing. It's not over yet either. Chris Knox having another look at the inside of the reigning champ. Oh, and sideways for the race leader as well. David Ward was just about escaping and loses the rear of the car through turn number 8, and that hands the lead to Dan Blake. Into second goes Knox, up into third could go Carl Jacquelet. Maybe can't quite get at the inside. Then there's another green car coming. That looks like it's Pip Hammond, is it, who's having a really good start to the race. Kyle Power, excuse me. Kyle Power into the top 5. Chris Knox in the gravel. Everyone in the gravel out the final corner. Everyone, that is, except for Dan Blake, who will lead the opening lap of the season. But will he hold on to it into turn number 1? Up the inside goes Chris Knox again. That slipstream is super effective, and despite running through the gravel coming out of the previous corner, Chris Knox has enough speed to get the lead, but he's in the gravel again coming out of turn 1. Surely he won't save it this time. He does. Brilliant car control. But he loses the race lead. He drops down to third. He could be fourth. No, he could be second. Who knows? They're changing position by the corner almost too quickly to keep up with it. And somehow he has his nose back in front of David Ward as the second place battle rages on. Pip Hammond has contact further back though. That's the number 2 car he's tangled with. Marcus Weller. There's a big coming together. Around goes number 17 too. And that is Freddie Hewitt. Number 192 is involved. That's Roger Morton. Lots of drivers, unfortunately, who are running inside the top 10, getting caught up in the initial contact that involved Gavin Johnson. Quite spot who he tangled with, but the accident has, unfortunately, claimed a few other innocent victims too, Freddie Hewitt being one of them. And, oh dear, one car with suspension damage in the background. So there's the contact look, and well, that looked avoidable, didn't it? It was the number 2 car that hit him. Number 2 is Marcus Weller. He, ironically, has rejoined in 11th place, ahead of, I think, all of the other drivers involved. Pip Hammond's view, excuse me. So it was Hammond, not Johnson. I beg your pardon. Pip Hammond's confused me by running the same livery for Season 2 that Gavin Johnson ran in Season 1. Here it is again then. Marcus Weller, the black car on the right-hand side. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell whether he moved left or Hammond moved right, but I'm sure both drivers will have their own opinion of what happened there. The way it catches them out, and then Freddie Hewitt there clobbered into by the 192 car, which Roger Morton just trying to avoid hitting the stranded cars in front. Nothing that either of those two drivers could do, but Hewitt looked as though he might have avoided it had it not been for that contact. More contact as well, we believe, yeah, a bit further down the order too. So all kicking off here in the early stages, and that is a shame because the racing we had over the opening lap between the top 4 or 5 drivers was absolutely exemplary. Alan Toon there, you can see, he's been involved in some contact as well. Exemplary racing between the leaders, but behind them all started to kick off, and as is so often the case, especially on a narrow section of track like that through the Moss S's, one bit of contact between 2 cars can unfortunately affect an awful lot of others who are just trying to pick their way through and mind their own business. Leaders then, the top 2 still Dan Blake and Chris Knox, but it's side by side for third as Kyle Power in the green and red 666 car tries to go up the inside of Carl Jacquelet, but Jacquelet saw it coming, moved to the inside. He would love to get 2 of these Year 1 racing cars on the podium to start off the second season of the PDC Racing League. An early leader, David Ward, has now dropped down to 5th, so David Ward, after a slightly scrappy opening few corners of the race, is now on the fringes of the top 5, but these 5 have pulled away considerably from everybody else. Gavin Johnson is in 6th, but he's over 3 seconds behind them. Ian Court is 7th, Ian Crosby 8th, Dale Benison 9th, and Marcus Weller rounding out the top 10. Biggest mover of the race at the moment, definitely Ian Crosby. He's gained 15 positions to get that 8th spot at the end of lap number 2. With several others, Alex Hall also, he's in 11th, but he started 22nd. Sam Holman started 24th, he's into the top 15 now. But of course, for every big gainer, there is also a big loser, and Freddie Hewitt has dropped 10 spots, Pip Hammond losing 14 after that contact, but both of those two have continued, despite their contact that they had a lap ago. His lap set by Chris Knox, incidentally, in second place, and you can see he's challenging Dan Blake for the race lead now. He's up the inside into turn number 2. That's really risky stuff through the sweeping left-hander at Williams, and now we're into those Moss S's where we've just seen it's very easy to tangle up and lock wheels. They're giving each other a really wide berth. They're almost at opposite sides of the track completely, with Dan Blake on the inside though. That will slow him down on the exit, and yep, Chris Knox teed that up perfectly, cuts to the late apex, gets 2 wheels right up over the curb. That hurts his traction slightly off the corner though, so he hasn't got this move completed yet. And the longer these two run side by side, the 3 cars in a perfect line behind them will start to close with a double slipstream. So they need to try and sort this out quickly if they can, or else Jacqueline, Power and Ward will be with them in a heartbeat. They're still wheel to wheel though. Dan Blake going around the outside through turn number 5. That gives him the inside line for the next 3 corners though. 3 left-handers coming up next. He's over the curb through the first of them, but then Knox is in the gravel, so pretty much honours even through there. Still side by side through turn number 7 at Piper, and now they're really holding each other up. There's contact there. Chris Knox loses the end of his nose cone, and look, they get swamped. Jacqueline goes to the outside. Carl Power goes to the inside line. This is a commentator's worst nightmare because you've got 3 yellow and pink or red cars absolutely together at the front of the field, and somehow fending them all off is Dan Blake. I'm not entirely sure how he's still the race leader after all of that, but he is, and Carl Jacqueline is trying to make it a Yearone Racing 1-2. He's at the inside of Carl Power through the penultimate corner into the last turn. They go now as well. Dan Blake trying to escape, but what's going on behind him? They're wheel to wheel. They're all just about avoiding contact, and David Ward says, don't forget about me. I want to join in this as well. He's getting a massive slipstream down the pit straight in the pink car at the back of the queue, and these top 5 drivers just will not leave each other alone. Chris Knox up the inside of Jacqueline, and Power, he locks the rear brake. Surely he won't save it. Slides out to the edge of the road. He catches the save, but he's going to lose that second place that he very briefly held to Carl Jacqueline, and Carl Power will try and go around the outside through Williams to reclaim 3rd position. Well, this is the kind of racing that usually we'd see in the last race of the season, and you wouldn't really expect them to be able to keep it up for too much longer without it going wrong, but so far they are avoiding significant contact and putting on one heck of a show in this first race of the season. But Dan Blake might just have made a bit of a break now at the front of the pack. If you can break the toe, if you can get more than about a second or so in front of the cars behind, then maybe they won't be able to get the slipstream and you might be able to escape. That's what Dan Blake's trying to do, but his teammate Carl Jacqueline is going to be trying to go after him, that's for sure. Early in the season, there are no team orders, there are no team preferences. Oh, big lock up there for Carl Power. Nearly got into the back of Jacqueline. He might have just handed 3rd place back to Chris Knox. Said the outside line through the hairpin becomes the inside line for the next few corners. Knox has executed another switch back. He's up the inside through Piper, and now there's another left-hand hairpin coming up. So side by side for 3rd with Knox in the black car. The green and red is Kyle Power, karting ace, and goes around the outside there with David Ward, just sort of trying to stay out of it, but also trying to pick his way through. You get the feeling that Ward is kind of settled in 5th, and he's just letting this all play out in front of him. He might not need to execute any overtakes if they all take each other off in front of him anyway. So that's maybe David Ward's plan of attack here. So far, as I said, they've avoided significant contact, and he hasn't been able to use that to his advantage. Got to remember to breathe in this race. Down the pit straight they go again. 5 laps in the books. Already we're halfway through. Not to believe, really. This race is flying by. Over the curbs they go there. Lots of different lines being taken. These cars, you really do have to throw them into the corner. They don't have a huge amount of downforce. You can see they don't run on slick tyres. They run on grooved tyres, so not much mechanical grip, not much aerodynamic grip, not much power either. So you've really got to try and slide the cars through the corner to keep the momentum up. That's what leads to these variances in line. Look at that. So right up over the curb, the very tight line for Chris Knox, but in front of him, Carl Jacqueline takes a much more wide sweeping line to try and carry that speed up the hill down the back straight. Are 1.1 seconds behind Dan Blake, but I can see on my live timing screen they are catching him in a straight line even from that far back. So either they've got slightly less downforce on their cars, or they're getting a whiff of a toe, which is bringing them back to the race leader. But as soon as they get to another corner and they start dicing with each other, the gap goes back out now to over 1.25 seconds. So I've said this many a time in race commentaries over the years, if this group of drivers would just work together, they could probably catch the race leader. I don't know why I bother still saying it, because it never happens. They always continue to scrap amongst themselves, and quite rightly so, I suppose, because there are still valuable points available for second place, but you score 35 points for winning and only 28 for second. It's a 7-point difference between first and second place. It's the biggest difference between any 2 positions in the race. So surely, he says, if you had a chance of catching the leader and challenging for those 35 points, work together in order to do so, but that doesn't appear to be what's happening because they're now 1.7 seconds back, so they've lost about 7 or 8 tenths over the course of this lap, and it looks as though Chris Knox feels that he's a bit quicker than Carl Jacquelet, and he might be able to lead this group of cars a little bit quicker if he was in front of them. And on they go. Knox defending the inside line. So, not Knox, excuse me, Jacquelet defending the inside line. Oh, Chris Knox dives from the outside to the inside towards turn 2. That's not really an overtaking opportunity. That's almost a flat-out left-hander in these cars. At least if you're on the correct racing line, which Chris Knox was not, which means that he's slow off the corner. And so Kyle Power gets the run on him. Through the Moss S's, back onto the brakes into the outward curve. And they stay in the same order, but for how much longer? Because Kyle Power is the one to run a bit wide this time, allowing David Ward to close in. We're on board with Ward. At 5th spot now, the number 69 car. Ward in the Result Clothing Racing Team entry. Having a look to the inside, having more than a look, in fact, dives in on the brakes. In front of him, Jacquelet and Chris Knox are side by side, but that's not really breaking news anymore, is it? They're side by side at most points. Kyle fighting back, though, at the inside of David Ward and gets back ahead of him. So David Ward was briefly in 4th position. Kyle Power didn't need any extra power there. He just had extra grip coming out of the turn and surges back in front. So he's back into 4th place. But that little dice has just let the two in front pull away. But Chris Knox was very, very, very sideways through the left-hander at Redmond. And he lost all of his momentum. He's got the inside line for the next turn, which is fortunate. Otherwise, I think he would have lost at least 1, maybe 2 positions. He should be able to fight back here on the inside of Kyle Power into the penultimate turn. Wheel to wheel over the curbs. Oh, there's almost been a contact between the two. I think Power had to back out to avoid that contact. And that has temporarily at least allowed Chris Knox to stay in front, but he's all over the place coming out of the final corner, and so Kyle Power fights back once again. Behind them, incidentally, we're watching Gavin Johnson here, who's just behind Ian Crosby. So Ian Crosby is in 6th position, Gavin Johnson is 7th. It's easy to forget there's anyone else in this race, but as intense as the lead fighting has been, there is plenty of battling going on right way up and down the order. A nice battle within the top 10. At 8th place, still Adam Southgate. 9th is Marcus Weller, and 10th for Ian Court. Ed Cooper here we're seeing in 13th place, going up the inside of Doug Hamilton, or attempting to anyway. Into turn 1, Hamilton gets sideways, almost loses it, and Ed Cooper avoids contact and is able to pick his way through. Holman, I'm seeing in the background, has picked up 10 places from his starting spot, despite having rear wing damage. And Adam Southgate has also picked up 1 position, but Ian Crosby continues to be the big winner out of this race. He's picked up 17 positions now from his starting spot to run in that 6th place, so just ahead of this group. There is Ian Crosby in the Specsavers car. He's got eyes on the front here because he's lapping a bit quicker than the cars in front too. He did 1 minute 44.83, which was the fastest lap of anybody on the previous lap. Not the fastest lap of the race, but the fastest lap on that previous lap went to Ian Crosby. So 1.7 seconds he is behind the 5th place car, David Ward, but only actually about 3 seconds or so off the race lead. So, which is this group quickly. A podium is definitely on the cards. Not a race win because Dan Blake is definitely getting away now, but the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th place is very much up for discussion here as we enter the final quarter of the race. Back on board with the John Player Special Lotus Formula 1 inspired car of Chris Knox as he tries to get a good exit this time from the last corner, which he succeeds in doing, gets in the slipstream of Carl Jacquelet and tries to attack for the race lead into turn number 1. The inside was not being defended initially by Jacquelet, but he does now move over to the inside to cover. That means that Knox tries this switchback move he's so fond of, gets into the back though of Jacquelet's car there, avoids damage by the looks of it, but that just lost him a mile an hour or so of momentum coming off the turn. So Jacquelet hangs on for now. This group is now nearly 3 seconds, over 2.5 seconds certainly behind the race leader Dan Blake, and Chris Knox has an overlap on the inside line. He's all over the place, so late on the brakes and so spectacular under braking as well. He really is braking at the absolute limit, even a metre or so later on the brakes, and Chris Knox would be off into the gravel trap in a flash, but he's just about keeping it under control. In 2nd place now from Jacquelet, who of course tries to fight back, and so too does Kyle Power. They could well be 3 abreast when they arrive down at the hairpin this time. Indeed they are, with Knox on the inside, Power on the outside, and Jacquelet squeezing in the middle. He runs out wide, that delays Kyle Power and hands 2nd place back to Chris Knox. Well, I suppose he retains 2nd place, he took it at the previous corner really, and fends off the challenge from Jacquelet and Power down the back straight. It's just so hard to defend from that move because the slipstream is so strong, so powerful. They are able to close in on the cars in front of them from quite a long way back, actually. Now, I can see that Ian Crosby has now caught David Ward as well, so the 5th place battle going on just behind these three, starting to heat up, and I wonder whether Ian Crosby can get past Ward quickly enough here that maybe he can chase down the podium places. There is Crosby, turning his way through the final couple of corners, the Specsavers number 48 car. Ian Crosby, hill climb competitor regularly at the Harewood Hill Climb, but really showing that he can do the roundy stuff as well. He's very handy on a racetrack, Ian Crosby. In the toe now, will he have a dive up the inside of David Ward? Oh, yes, he does, and Ward didn't really know whether or not he could turn in there, but the benefit is if you run wide at any given corner at this track, you seem to always be on the inside line for the next corner, which is making side-by-side racing very common, but it's quite difficult actually to execute an overtake. Ian Crosby now very much finding that out. Actually has to go wheel to wheel with that many cars in hill climb competition, but that's definitely a feature of the PDC Racing League. Looks at the inside again into turn before the outward curve, a wide line for David Ward. Looks as though he's losing lots of time, but look at the exit speed that he carries, and David Ward with that wide line, well, I thought was going to be able to fight back. He ducks in the slipstream though, that might be enough for him to draw back alongside. Indeed it is, that will be the outside line for the hairpin at turn number 5. Just in front of them, Carl Jacquelet and Kyle Power still debating 3rd position, but they're dropping back slightly now from Chris Knox, and they're side by side, and there's contact. Oh, Jacquelet goes around, he's upside down, and Ian Crosby gains 3 places in one corner because he goes past David Ward and he picks his way past the tangled Carl Jacquelet and Kyle Power. What a shame that battle had to end in contact. Here's the replay. We saw it starting to happen. Jacquelet defends the inside, so Power is looking for that switchback move, but the gap was never there, I'm afraid. He was trying to carry the momentum through the corner, but Jacquelet had defended it well. He had the car stopped on the apex. Power sort of ran into the back of him, in my opinion, but we'll see what the stewards have to say after the race. Jacquelet trying to limp his way back to the pits here, but you can see the suspension damage, and he is not going anywhere quickly right now. Carl Jacquelet has already fallen down to 13th. Remember, you score points within the top 15 for this season, but with a car as wounded as that, even with as little time left on the clock as there is now, he's not going to be able to score any points from this one, I don't think. He's 14th. He's 11 seconds ahead of Ben Hansey, I suppose. But Hansey's taking about a second out of every corner, so well, we'll see. He might be able to limp back around, but that's a real shame because both of those drivers deserved that 3rd position. But in the end, 3rd place now belongs to Ian Crosby, with Ward 4th and Gavin Johnson 5th. Kyle Power rejoined in 6th position. We're watching the car just in front of him now. Gavin Johnson, through the Moss S's, has rather had the effect of splitting the pack as well. There's now a 2.5 second gap between the top two, then another 2 seconds back to Crosby and Ward, but then they're a second and a half ahead of this man, Gavin Johnson. So it's separated the field. Oh yeah, this is Pip Hammond now. I really do wish Pip hadn't changed his livery for this season. I'm just not used to seeing him in the white and red RS liveried car, but Pip Hammond has where's he found himself now? He's down in 19th after that contact he had earlier on. Roger Morton is right behind him now in the 192 car. These two were both involved in that incident, remember, so they're packed together again now, but fighting outside of the points, sadly. SR Electricals there, one of the series sponsors, also on the side of the Pip Hammond car. And we thank, again, our sponsors for the PDC Racing Series, including SR Electrical, a wholesaler specialising in electrical products. Steve Tuff, the owner, Pip and Gavin since 2016. And they highly recommend his company for all of your electrical product needs. And Pip Hammond is unfortunately not going to get the result for them that he would have liked, but he's putting in some good lap times actually at the moment, and could of course gain at least one more place to the ailing Carl Jacquelet, who is now out of the points. He's 16th now and hemorrhaging time by the corner. In court we're following now. He's into the top 10 after a result of the some of the earlier contact. We're on to the final lap now, though, possibly, are we? We're certainly into the closing stages of this first race, and there is Chris Knox, your second-placed runner. The leader. Yeah, now, this gap is coming down. I said it was 2.5 seconds about a lap ago, and it had shrunk even up to that point. It's now just 2.1 seconds. I think Dan Blake is probably just stroking it home here. He's a comfortable margin. But Dan is... No, it's under 2 seconds now, so is there a problem here for Dan Blake? He certainly does like making life difficult for himself sometimes. Understeers his way through the hairpin. Tyre wear maybe is a factor. He's been, you'd have thought, able to conserve his tyres better than everybody else, because he's been on his own for most of the race, certainly the second half of it, whilst everyone else was dicing behind. But there's no doubt about it, this gap is coming down, and Chris Knox, now that he's free from the gaggle of cars behind, is catching Dan Blake and looks a bit faster. So that's a sign that had Chris Knox been able to escape with Dan, he might have been able to give him a run for his money. But we're coming into the final couple of quarters now for what I believe is the final time, and Dan Blake, the reigning champion, looks as though he's going to be able to add another race victory to his tally. He comes out of the final turn. Dan Blake sees the checkered flag and wins the opening round of the PDC Racing Series, and does so by a couple of seconds in the end over Chris Knox in second place. That's Dan's third victory in his PDC racing career, which means he's now joint most successful winner with Ben Leach, both of them on 3 race victories. Chris Knox comes home in second, Ian Crosby third. That was probably the drive of the race. He started 23rd, let's not forget, with David Ward fourth, the pole sitter. Then Gavin Johnston gets a top 5. Kyle Power is sixth, but I'd imagine Jack Lett may want to work with him, and so too may the clock of the course after that contact that they had. Adam Southgate does well on his debut in 7th. Marcus Weller is 8th, Ian Court is 9th, and Freddie Hewitt rounding out the top 10. 11th for Ed Cooper, 12th Doug Hamilton, and then Sam Holman comes home in 13th. Ben Hansey behind him will be 40th, but he's a long way back. And Dale Benison should round out the points-paying positions. I don't think we'll see any changes there. There's what's left of Dale Benison's car going through the final couple of corners. Off the final turn itself, will come home in 15th and round out the points. And there is Carl Jacquelet. Jacquelet must have pitted because the car's running quickly again now. But only good enough for 16th. I think he picked Alex Hall there on the very last lap to get that 16th place. So Jacquelet definitely need to try and have a race 2 and try to score himself a few more championship points. Here comes Pip Hammond. He's going to be 18th. Alan Toon, I think, is the last driver that hasn't yet seen the checkered flag. Once he gets there, we'll be able to give you the provisional result from a thrilling opening race in the PDC Racing League. We'll also have a chance to hear from our top 3 drivers, hopefully Dan Blake, Chris Knox and Ian Crosby. I know Dan Blake will be here for a chat. There's no getting rid of him. He does like a stint in the commentary box, does Dan. But when he's not commentating on sim racing, he's racing in it and often winning in it, it seems. And Dan continuing his winning streak from the end of last year. The results then about to go up as every driver has got to the checkered flag. And this victory goes Dan Blake, the reigning champion, living up to that number 1 reputation, is your first race winner of the season. Chris Knox will come home in 2nd, Crosby 3rd, David Ward 4th, Johnson rounding out the top 5. Then it's Kyle Power and Adam Southgate, Marcus Weller and Ian Court, whilst Freddie Hewitt rounds out the top 10. But points, remember, are scored all the way down to 15th place for this season. So in 11th, Ed Cooper, 12th, Doug Hamilton, 13th, Sam Holman, 14th, Ben Hansey, and 15th, Dale Benison. They all score points as well, just 1 point for 15th place. Carl Jacquelet is 16th, Alex Hall was 17th, then Pip Hammond, Alan Toon, and Roger Morton to round out the top 20. Ben Bateman is 21st, 22nd was Alex Van Gied, McClone a lap or 2 down in the end in 23rd. Then it was Phil Law, Ben Bateman, Michael Seal, and Danny Henney was 11 laps down after, we're assuming, a lengthy pit lane visit. So, brilliant racing then for our opening race of the season. And we will now begin the build-up to race number 2. We have this little break between the races with the change of servers, but we'll be back with you with racing action very shortly. Beforehand, though, hopefully we'll have a chance to chat with our podium finishers. They just need to make their way from the podium to the commentary box. We'll be able to get all of the stories, and they've all got stories to tell, haven't they? Dan Blake really had to fight hard to retain the lead early on, and I'm not quite sure how he managed to do it. Chris Knox, likewise, was in the battle all race long, and then Ian Crosby gaining 20 positions is an absolutely incredible performance, that from Ian Crosby. And after scoring no points in qualifying, the 25 points that he'll score for finishing in 3rd in the race will go down very nicely indeed. Remember, David Ward had pole position, and Dan Blake was 2nd, so Blake has already scored 36 championship points after just the first qualifying and race. Also a bonus point for fastest lap as well. That did not go to Dan Blake. The next 2 drivers behind him actually both went quicker. Just a quick scan through the leaderboard tells me that I think it's Ian Crosby got the bonus point for fastest lap as well, actually. So he scores 26 points, despite having started 23rd on the grid. No drivers yet presenting themselves to us for interviews between races, so we don't want to hang around too long for them. So what we might do, I think, is begin our little change round of servers. We'll go into our quick mid-race break, and if they've turned up in the meantime, we'll have a chat with them at the start of part 2. But do not go anywhere, because we still have another race to go. Go and use this chance to make yourselves a cup of tea and get yourself comfy again for 30 minutes next time around, racing around the Okayama International Circuit in the PDC Racing League. Season 2 off to a fine start, set to continue in race 2 in a few minutes' time. Race number 2 of the season in the PDC Racing League is not that far away for you now. Thanks for joining us tonight for this season opener from the Okayama International Circuit, which has produced an absolute thriller already tonight. The first 20-minute race of the season was which eventually saw reigning champion Dan Blake escape up the road, take race win by 1.6 seconds. He was being caught by Chris Knox, though, who battled his way throughout the race into second place, with Ian Crosby third, David Ward fourth, and Gavin Johnson fifth. But Dan Blake, having qualified second on the grid for that first race, is early championship leader. So imagine he's going to be pretty happy with how his season started. In fact, we can find out just how happy he is, because Dan Blake has joined us in the commentary box ahead of the second race of the night. Dan, you took the number 1 on your car for this second season to defend your title, and for some drivers that turns out to be a bit of a curse, but so far, quicker than ever, mate.
Hello, Andy. Hello, Yearone. Yeah, I did wonder whether to go with my normal 27 or to take number 1. I thought, well, I've earned it, so I may as well take it on. And it was an interesting race. It was sort of race of different stages, really. The first 2 or 3 laps, I was having good battles with David Ward and Chris Knox. They made their little mistakes, and my teammate Carl Jacqueline got involved, and sort of a bit of a team effort. Carl was able to sort of fight them and give me the chance to break away, and then I put in some fast lap times and just cleared the gap, because once you pass that slipstream, it's very hard for them to get back onto you, really.
Yeah, I didn't expect the slipstream to be as effective here as it has been. I know you've got that long back straight. Is it the fact that it's uphill and it's out of a tight hairpin? Is that what's making that slipstream so valuable? Because it seemed like, not just in your battle, but throughout the field, people were getting a slipstream from quite a long way back.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really, but I just think the car in general is pretty good. We saw at Silverstone last year and a couple of the other circuits that the slipstream on the car is very good, and I think that was the main battle I had in that race, where he was trying to break that slipstream, because even when Carl was behind me, he was catching me 3, 4, 5 tenths down the straight. It's just a massive slipstream, and to just be able to break that is sort of one of the keys to victory.
So what's your mindset like then coming into this second season? Obviously, you won the championship last year with race victories. Are you changing your mindset at all, though, coming into season 2? Because there are some new drivers around now, and they're pretty quick already, aren't they?
I know, I've seen names like Adam Southgate, I recognise from Toyota's, Porsches, and a few other people as well. So there's going to be some drivers up there. Obviously, Chris is there as well as ever, as like last year. And it's going to be interesting. All the fast drivers from last year are back, and we got some quick drivers, new drivers as well. And I think as they get used to the car, it's going to be better. And I think really I've just got to carry on what I'm doing, really, and sort of race clean, fair, and just try and see what the best results we can get is, and just go for it, really.
Yeah, well, so far so good, eh? Second place in qualifying, a win in race 1. You've got the early points lead, so another good qualifying session here, and you could be in a pretty good position heading to Alton Park.
Yeah, it's really interesting with the qualifying. It'll be 5 minutes. It's almost sort of like the old one-shot showdown days of the British touring cars, because you only get 1, maybe 2 laps, especially on the longer circuits, to sort of get your lap in. So it's very important to be able to do it, and it's going to be interesting, and hopefully I can qualify sort of top 3, top 4 again, and go from there, really. That'd be the main task, and then just try and race through again.
Make it sound all so easy. I'm sure it won't be, but
it's not.
it never is. But that's how we like it. Keeps it nice and entertaining for us. This will be another really good race. Well done on the victory, mate, and best of luck for race 2.
Excellent, thank you, guys.
Dan Blake then, your reigning champion, your championship leader after race number 1. Will he be in points leader after race 2? Because last season he was stringing together more than one consecutive race that seemed to be Dan's issue. And not just Dan either. A lot of drivers were struggling with consistency in season 1. They'd be on the podium in race 1, but then they'd get tangled up in contact in race 2 and finish down in 8th or 9th place. And you could kind of get away with that last year because it was a slightly smaller grid. There were a select few drivers that were on the pace every week. But I think season 2 is really going to put an extra element of importance on consistency and on making sure that you stay out of trouble and you score well in all of the races. And so the drivers that haven't scored well in the first race of this season, Carl Jacqueline, Pip Hammond, to name but a couple, those are both drivers that ordinarily you'd expect to be somewhere near the pointy end. Carl Jacqueline was, of course, for most of the first race until that late contact with Kyle Power, but they will have even more incentive in race number 2 to get to the front and start their championship campaign properly now. So there is Gavin Johnson then in this free practice session, which is used just to pass the time, really, between the 2 races. The drivers all have to change to a different race server between each event. And so the first practice qualifying race session is on one server, and then they go over to the second one. And this practice session just is used to give everybody time to get in. And I think most drivers have done now. We've got about 25 of them, maybe more, actually, 27, I think. That are in the session already. For what it's worth, Freddie Hewitt is quickest with Ian Crosby second and David Ward in third position. But no points on offer at this stage. Qualifying, though, coming up in about 1.5 minutes, actually. And that will be worth those valuable championship points once again. And pole positions are significant. Last season, Ben Leach was on pole position in all 3 of the events in which he participated. So he's got the most pole positions of anybody in season number 1. So going to be the case again here in season number 2, or will we see a bit more variety of pole sitters? Whilst we're waiting for the session to get underway, there's a reminder of a few of the other championships that you really should be tuning into on the Yearone Racing TV channel, because Yearone Racing are continuing to bring some of the highest level iRacing esports competitions. Monday nights are when you can tune in for the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. 7:30 will be the time to tune in on Monday for their 4th event of the season at my local circuit, Alton Park. Then on Tuesdays, as ever, the BSR MX5 2020 Pro Series will be racing 4 races featuring reversed grids, massive grids as well in that one make MX5 Championship. 8 o'clock on Tuesday evening UK time will be the time to watch some MX5 action. And then on Wednesdays, you really don't want to miss the Power Max Racing E-Series, round number 4 from the Cathedral of Speed, Monza in Italy, for the championship that pits top-level pro drivers from touring cars, GTs, single-seaters up against some of the fastest sim racers in the land. And a really, really tight contest at Silverstone last week has whetted the appetite for that 4th meeting of the season on Wednesdays. And then, of course, Friday nights for the next 4 weeks or so will be PDC Racing Series nights, 8 o'clock every Friday evening. Next time out, we will be at Alton Park for the 3rd and 4th rounds of the PDC Racing League. Before that, though, we have the small matter of round number 2 to get out of the way, and that is about to get underway here with our 5-minute qualifying session, the second qualifying session of the night. It's one of the great things, actually, about this series, that each race has its own dedicated qualifying session. That means that, like in some other series, where a bad result in race 1 has then got a negative effect on your grid position for race 2, or the drivers can completely erase race 1 from their memories if they want to. It's a fresh start now for race 2, a fresh opportunity to get a good grid position and to score themselves some points and set themselves up nicely for even more points, they hope, in race number 2. 10 points for pole, 9 for second, 8 for 7, and so for third, all the way down to 1 point for 10th place. And then in the races, 35 points for a win, 28 for second, 25 for third, all the way down to 1 point for 15th place. So lots of points on offer. Works out at about 90 points per event, 92 actually with the fastest lap points as well. So even if you do have a slightly lacklustre round, if there's a track that maybe just isn't suiting you and you're not able to get the best out of the car at it, well, at least if you do well at the next round or 2, you can always fight back there. Important observation here, I finally figured out the difference between the 2 RS livery cars, only because this is the first time tonight they've been together on track, but Pip Hammond has yellow wheels, Gavin Johnson has green wheels. It's not a scrap of use if they're heading straight towards you as they are now, but if we get a side-on view of these 2 cars, that is how you tell the difference. So Pip with the yellow wheels, Gavin with the green wheels, and the 2 teammates, well, it was Gavin that definitely had the better start to the season in race number 1, but arguably Pip Hammond could have been in the top 5 with him had he not had that contact, because he was outside the top 5 in about 6th or 7th place, and the contact occurred through the Moss S's, and Hammond should be... Oh no, this is extra confused now. There's another one. This is Ben Bateman with white wheels on his RS. I hadn't realised there were 3 of them. Well, let's hope they don't all qualify together, because otherwise I'm not going to hope in hell of picking them apart and going into that first corner. These two, though, are staying nice and close together in qualifying in order to try and get a slipstream. They're also working with David Ward, who was our pole sitter for the first race. So this should be a pretty quick trio of drivers here. Everybody is on their first full flying lap, and as we saw in the first session, you get time for 2 of those. You're out lap from the pit lane. And then 2 full flying laps. By the time you've got the tyres up to temperature, though, you're probably going to be halfway around your first flying lap. So, Blake was saying, realistically, it all boils down to that last lap of the session. David Ward and Hammond both locking up. See, I'd already forgotten who had the yellow wheels. Hammond locking up too behind David Ward. And Gavin Johnson seems to have dropped back from them, possibly in anticipation that was all going to go wrong through the hairpin. Together then, Hammond actually set the fastest out lap, so he is on provisional pole at the moment, 1:48.3, but that lap time will most definitely be beaten before the end of the session, because fastest laps for the previous qualifying session were in the mid to high 1:45s. So in fact, to be precise, pole position for David Ward is 1:45.67. That is our fastest lap of the night in the qualifying sessions so far. Lap record around this place is a 1 minute 14.0, but that was set by Michael Schumacher in a Benetton Formula 1 car back in 94. Oh, around goes Dan Blake. That's the second session that he's made a mistake now, but this time he's really scuppered his chances, because he spun across the line at the end of his first flying lap, and that will ruin the start to his second flying lap. So this is big drama for the championship leader and the reigning champ, Dan Blake. He's down in 11th place already, and I don't think he's going to improve on a 1:51.3. Well, for reference, a 1:51.3 in the previous qualifying session would have put him down in about 20th place. So he can't improve again on this lap, and I fail to see how he will be able to, especially since he's damaged the nose of the car and he's now in traffic. It could be that Dan Blake has an awful lot of overtaking to do in race number 2. He'll be glad that it's 30 minutes instead of just the 20 that we had for race 1, but that could be a really big story here ahead of the second race of the night. The blue and white car, who he dives up the inside on, but we only have 20 seconds left on the clock, so there's no way he'll get back around to do another lap. That could be big drama for Dan Blake. What of those that have kept it a bit cleaner, though? Well, David Ward, the pole sitter in race 1, has gone even quicker in session number 2 than he did earlier on. His pole position last time was 1:45.6. He's just at a 44.9. That's 3/4 of a second quicker than he went in session 1. And he is your provisional pole sitter, with Carl Jacquelet second and Pip Hammond in third. So Hammond is definitely delivering on his potential in this second qualifying session. Adam Southgate is 4th. Michael Seal is 5th. They've all got one more lap to complete, and David Ward will be, I think, the first driver to see the checkered flag. He comes out of the final corner now in the pink number 69 car. Can he improve? Surely he can't improve on a 44.9. That puts him 0.37 of a second clear of Carl Jacquelet at the moment. He crosses the start-finish line, and he improved? Has he not improved? No, 45.0, so no change there. Gavin Johnson jumps into 5th place, though. Pip Hammond, I'm seeing, has just been off the road. Carl Jacquelet goes to pole. Carl Jacquelet, a 1:44.84 is a phenomenal lap time, 6/100ths quicker than David Ward, and that is the way to bounce back after the heartbreak from race 1 for Carl Jacquelet. He takes pole position at the moment. David Ward second. Michael Seal has gone third. It's a completely different look to the front of the grid than in race 1, and Kyle Power goes 4th. Kyle Power across the line beats Pip Hammond to 4th position, and Pip is dropped down to 5th. Then it's Southgate, Bateman and Johnson, with Alex Van Gien and Ian Crosby having also crossed the line now and seen the checkered flag in 9th and 10th. Freddie Hewitt, I think, is one of the last drivers still on a lap. Roger Morton has completed his session. Hewitt all the way down in 22nd place. You'd expect him to gain a little bit on this next lap. He's about to cross the start-finish line, is Freddie, in the number 17 car. And will he jump up from 22nd? Yes, he does. He goes 14th at the end of the session. And I think he was the last one through. So a really dramatic second qualifying session of the night sees Carl Jacquelet take the pole position, with David Ward, the race 1 pole sitter, alongside him. So Ward has scored 19 points just from qualifying. That's why it's important to have good one-lap pace in this championship. Michael Seal and Kyle Power share the second row. Pip Hammond and Adam Southgate on row 3. Then Ben Bateman and Gavin Johnson, Alex Van Gien and Ian Crosby rounding out the top 10. 6th row for Marcus Weller and Sam Holman. 7th row, Roger Morton and Freddie Hewitt. Then row 8 for Ed Cooper and Dan Blake. Yeah, so he didn't improve. Stayed 16th in the end, so it could have been worse. It could have and should have been a lot better. Row 9 for Kevin McGlone and Dale Benison, and rounding out the top 20 are Alex Hall and Ian Court. Then it's Phil Law and Chris Knox. No, it's not. Alex Hall and Alan Toon, excuse me, rounding out the top 20. Lost the ability to read now. Ian Court and Phil Law on the 11th row. Then Chris Knox. So what happened to Chris Knox? He's all the way down in 23rd place now, the runner-up from race 1. So he and Dan Blake with a lot of overtaking to be done. And it's Ben Bateman, Ben Hansey, Kevin Boland and Doug Hamilton at the back of a very jumbled grid. Set to be a really intriguing 30 minutes of racing. Remember, this is a slightly longer race this time around, but still the same length, same amount of points. So it's a longer race, but still those 35 points plus a point for fastest lap available. The field is almost ready. Lights are on. We're ready to go racing then. Carl Jacquelet on pole. David Ward alongside him. Both of them keen to take advantage. They're creeping. Creeping there. Is that from David Ward? Now, what happened there? Did he jump the start? He's going to get the lead, but I think he's probably going to get a penalty for that. So David Ward leads them into turn number 1 with Carl Jacquelet second, but that start will definitely have repercussions for David Ward, I think. It's just not really worked for him, has it, tonight? There's a spin further back there. It's Alex Van Geen who's gone off and has to bounce his way back across the gravel trap. He rejoins, but right at the back of the field. Dramatic start. So David Ward, will he be given an immediate penalty here, I wonder, or is it going to be one of those things that gets looked into later on? For the time being, he's leading the race. Carl Jacquelet in second. And yeah, we're hearing it probably will be an immediate penalty for David Ward. There's nothing on my screen to tell me that yet, but we're assuming that will be the case because it definitely looked like he crept before the race got underway. He's pulling to the right-hand side, our right-hand side, his left-hand side down the back straight because Carl Jacquelet's up the inside of him. And in fact, he's now fighting back. I thought for a moment he was trying to redress the situation and give the places back, but I think he's thought better of it now. So they're side by side with Jacquelet to the outside into turn number 6 at Revolver. Ooh, almost banging wheels there through the corner, and Jacquelet just really wants to try and get on with this here, but he can't quite get across in front of David Ward, and this is backing them up into Michael Seal and Kyle Power and Pip Hammond and Adam Southgate and Marcus Weller, everybody else queuing up behind them as they race their way halfway around the first lap. Freddie Hewitt's had a spin and has been in the barriers by the looks of it coming out of turn number 7. There's been a fair bit of drama on this opening lap because Kevin McGlone and Court, Phil Law and Ben Bateman are all in the pit lane, and there is David Ward taking his drive-through penalty. So David Ward now gives away the race lead to do a drive-through penalty. Better to do it now. You only have 3 laps to serve it in anyway. If you get it done early, then at least you've got plenty of time to fight back again later in the race. So, after a topsy-turvy opening lap, Jacquelet leads the way. Michael Seal is in second position, and Kyle Power third after redemption, after his contact with Jacquelet in the previous race. Then it's Pip Hammond in fourth, also in need of a good result, and then Adam Southgate rounding out the top 5. Marcus Weller is then 1.6 seconds back in sixth position, then Sam Holman, and then Dan Blake and Chris Knox. Look at this. So Dan Blake has gained 8 positions, Chris Knox has gained 14. That's nothing though. Kevin Boland, a couple of places behind them, has gained 15 positions. So there are a few drivers really carving their way through the order like the proverbial hot knife through butter. And Dan Blake and Chris Knox are leading the charge. Round the outside they go now of Sam Holman. That's for 7th place for Dan Blake. Hasn't quite made the move stick yet though, and Chris Knox is going to go up the inside. They're 3 abreast down the back straight now, and they're going to go either side of Sam, who sensibly ducks in behind them. I think he knows that they're both a bit quicker than him. Better to work with them, at least for 2 or 3 seconds, and then dive back down the middle into the braking zone. Quite as late on the brakes as Chris Knox or Dan Blake. Knox goes past the pair of them. Blake, though, still hasn't made this stick, and Knox is now in the grass coming out of turn number 5. Well, they just about get away with contact, though. Dan Blake slithers up the inside too, and then it's Alex Hall in the green number 9 car trying to follow them through as well. Freddie Hewitt, the corner at which he made a mistake earlier on, but it's Jacquelet that leads. Almighty battle for second place there. Look, as Kyle Power was going up the inside of Michael Seal, and that opens the door for Pip Hammond, who could get himself onto the podium here. It's not quite going to happen as they go through the final turn, and very briefly then they settle in at single file. So let's take a look, if we can, at some of the drama from the opening lap, because there was plenty of it. By the time we come back to this battle, we'll probably be in a completely different order, I'm sure, but it looks like a battle that's going to rage for quite some time. So here's a replay then going through the first corner of Bateman, I believe this is, and lots of contact, a big hit there for Ben, and that explains why he found himself in the pit lane at the end of the opening lap. Benison also involved in contact, and this is all really unfortunate at the start of a 30-minute race, because the idea is that the longer race means you don't have to have quite such a sense of urgency at the start. But as we can see, urgency, and they've come unstuck early part of the race. Right, Ian Crosby I'm seeing now going down the back straight, so he was one of our front runners in the previous race, and he's going to run straight into the back of Gavin Johnson. Oh dearie me. And the 293 car also of that's Ben Bateman. So Crosby board with him now. This was a little bit, he was a long way back, wasn't he? Just misjudged it, just braked way too late, tried to avoid everybody, but that was never going to happen with the greatest of respect. So in race number 1, it was Pip Hammond that was the victim of unfortunate early contact in his RS car, but now it's Gavin Johnson, his teammate, that seems to have come a cropper in the early stages. And then back to live pictures, and Carl Jacqueline has a 2-second lead. Yeah, this is exactly the same as in race 1. The cars that are in second on backwards are just fighting amongst themselves and allowing the race leader to pull clear. So it's Kyle Power that has second in the green and red number 666 car. Michael Seal in the Tom Ingram-inspired Ginsters livery is third. Then it's Adam Southgate, the white and orange number 45 in fourth, and the white car with the yellow wheels for Pip Hammond, and that's Chris Knox. Chris Knox has got around in the background. Oh, that's a real shame. He was up into the top 8 at the time that he went off, and that now hands Dan Blake an extra position. I suppose he's into 6th. In fact, he must have been 6th place, because Dan Blake's just gone into 6th, Marcus Weller 7th, and Freddie Hewitt up into 8th position. Boland gains another place as well. He's now picked up 17 from where he started. Could beat Ian Crosby's record from the previous race at this rate. Well, Chris Knox has rejoined in 12th. That's Ed Cooper right in front of him. Number 4 is Kevin Boland, battling away with Ben Bateman, who's recovering nicely after being rudely assaulted by a slightly out of control Ian Crosby at the end of the back straight on the opening lap. Oh, Boland with a huge slide through the Moss S's, and well, contact anyway as they get to the next corner. I was about to say that Bateman avoided contact brilliantly there and then proceeded to run straight into the back of Kevin Boland, and I think he's lost his nose cone now, so that's certainly going to hurt his aerodynamic capabilities, or his car's aerodynamic capabilities. They're being caught all the time by Ed Cooper and Chris Knox as well. The brakes into the hairpin, and the number 2 car there of Marcus Weller definitely did not want to get involved in that battle. He just pulled to the left and led everybody through. So through goes Boland, through goes Bateman. Marcus Weller tries to follow them through as well. And by comparison, it makes this second place battle look rather calm, doesn't it? But I sense that it's all going to start to escalate quite quickly as we get into the race. They may be starting to work together so as to catch the race leader. Oh, more contact. That's Ed Cooper. Ed Cooper's off. So is Sam Holman. Kevin Boland, I think, yeah, he's the Year 1 racing car off. In the distance, there's another car spinning, and that's Ben Bateman, I reckon, who's just fast-tracked to the pit lane. Well, what happened there? We cut away from it for an instant, and next thing we know, cars upside down, cars in the gravel, cars pointing the wrong way. It's the end of it there on the replay. It's as though there was contact. Let's see, I'm not quite seeing the oh, there it is. Oh, so Bateman it looks like maybe 2 separate incidents then. So Bateman gets into Holland, and then what happened with Ed Cooper behind? Hansi there picks his way through. It's already happened. I don't quite know what's happened there. So Cooper, typically, there we go. Oh, so the green car, which I think is Alex Hall, was that number 64, seems to tip Ed Cooper into a spin. He then collects the car that was on the outside line. So we're about 6 or 7 different drivers involved in 2 separate accidents at the same corner there, and it's I think they're going to be talking about that one for a while, but it's hard to tell exactly where to dish out the blame because there was so much contact going on. Anyway, thankfully things are staying rather cleaner at the front of the field, and Adam Southgate is making good progress. He's into 3rd place now at the expense of Michael Seal. Pip Hammond's kind of keeping a watching brief, but keep an eye on that green and purple car in the background. Oh, never mind. Let's keep an eye instead on a sideways Adam Southgate, who hands back over the 3rd place that he'd just taken from Michael Seal. He's about to lose 4th as well because Pip Hammond's up the inside. That loss of momentum from Adam Southgate has hurt him. He's on the outside line now for the next couple of corners. Pip Hammond clobbers the curb on the inside, leaving Southgate plenty of room. Uses the curb again through the last corner, keeps it on the island on the exit, and Hammond up an extra position. What I was about to say is they're all being caught by Dan Blake. Dan Blake is about to come across the start-finish line and set a lap time of Wait till the timing screen updates itself. A 1 minute 44.17, which is a new fastest lap of the race. I thought it might be. He is 1.7 seconds behind that group now. But to put that into perspective, he is about half a second quicker than the race leader. He's over a full second, though, quicker than Seal and Hammond and Southgate. So Dan Blake, despite starting 16th on the grid, looks as though he might be able to get himself a podium out of this race. Whether he'll have time to catch his teammate Jacqueline out front awaits to be seen. I think he needs to make really good progress through this next pack of cars in order to be able to stand a chance of doing that. But if he can do that, himself on the podium, that will be some very nice points, and it should, I reckon, be enough for him to hold on to the championship lead despite not scoring any points out of qualifying. So the next 10 minutes or so will be crucial for Dan Blake. He needs to get through this next group of 2 or 3 cars with minimal delay, and if he can do that, maybe a race victory could still be on the cards. No, I'm being told that's a yellow car. I'm sorry, it's not. That is very much green, black, yellow. I see, right? Okay, Graham Sessford should know, I suppose, as the man behind the Yearone racing project. But I don't know. It looks fairly more green than yellow. Anyway, we'll discuss that after. It's the number 1 car though. It's the number 1 car for a reason, because Dan Blake is proving now why he is the reigning champion. In the whatever coloured car it is, it's going very quickly and seems to have escaped damage in the early stages, which is a bit of a minor miracle, really, given the traffic he was having to negotiate. It's Chris Knox gone, by the way. Chris Knox was with Dan Blake earlier on, wasn't he? But then he had that second spin, and he's gone a lap down in 24th place. So Chris, in fact, he's still in the pit lane, we believe. So Chris Knox, unfortunately, not going to make the same stellar progress that one of his sparring partners from race 1 will be able to do. Well, Benison, meanwhile, coming through, car number 37. He's running down in 16th place at the moment, is Dale. In Boland, crabbing his way down the straight. So Boland's definitely got some damage from his contact earlier on of 3 or 4 Year 1 racing cars that we've got racing in the PDC Racing Series tonight. With him now, and this car's understeering terribly there through the second corner at Williams. His lap times, previous lap was 1:48.2, which is about a second and a half off his best, about 4 and a bit seconds off the race leaders. So the car doesn't want to turn into the corners, and then down the straight it's trying to swap ends and crabbing along like nobody's business. So Kevin Rowland, a little trouble here, I think. So he's out. So he's out of the. I know he's in the points, 14th place. I suppose if he can limp home for a point, it might be worth it. But even that's going to take some doing. At the front of the field, by the way, Kyle Power has pulled away now from Michael Seal and Pip Hammond and Adam Southgate, who's right behind Pip Hammond still. And the gap between the top 2 is coming down fractionally. On the previous lap, Kyle Power in second was a 10th of a second quicker than Carl Jacqueline, race leader. So the gap is down to about 1.4 seconds. I think it's come down even further on this lap. We're on board with Pip Hammond in 4th position, though. Pip, having missed out on the points in race 1, will be desperate to try and get on the podium here if he can. Lead gap is 1.5 seconds. The gap did, though, come down by quite a bit on the previous lap. It came down by about 7/10. So Power definitely catching the leaders. And here is Dan Blake. So Dan Blake with another fastest lap of 43.8. That's a brilliant lap. We're saying how quickly Kyle Power's going. Well, Dan Blake's nearly a full second quicker than him at the moment. So he has now caught the 3rd, 4th and 5th place cars. And if he gets a real move on here, he might yet be able to go after the leading 2. There's a spin to the inside. It's not Pip Hammond because it didn't have yellow wheels. I didn't spot whether it had green or white. I think it had white. So Ben Bateman is the one that had the spin out of turn number 4 outward curve. So has a grandstand view here of Adam Southgate going back up the inside of the yellow-wheeled Pip Hammond. On the brakes they go, and Southgate very late. I thought he was going to have a go at getting past both Hammond and Michael Seal. He settles for just 1 overtake in that particular corner. Indeed, take 3rd place away. Dan has done the easy bit. He's caught these 3. I say easy, it's comparatively easy because the next job is significantly harder. Getting past them, not going to be the work of a moment, clearly, because these are all fast drivers. They're battling amongst themselves, but they're not really making any mistakes. They're not overly holding each other up. So Dan will have to get his thinking cap on now. Because what he also desperately wants to avoid is contact with any of them. He can't be too eager with this. I top 5 or 6 would be a fantastic result given where he started. So he might just be thinking championship already here. The more he sees this sort of stuff going on in front of him, though, the more chance he will have of taking advantage of it, because they're starting to hold each other up again. Michael Seal was a bit slow off the last corner, so Adam Southgate gets a run to the inside. Pip Hammond doesn't really know where to go, so kind of just sits in between the two of them. And they continue to run wheel to wheel. Southgate and Seal so nearly making contact there coming out of turn number 1. Southgate's now on the outside line for the second corner at Williams. He just carries the momentum off the corner and slots in behind Seal, but in front of Hammond. Dan Blake tries to feed them up as well, looking for a go at getting up the inside, maybe into the hairpin at turn number 4. Oh, contact there, and around goes Michael Seal. Oh, Adam Southgate launched an attack to the inside, and Michael Seal, well, it was hard to tell whether he turned in or whether Southgate drifted wide. We'll try and get a look at a replay if we can. Here we go, right on cue. Well, hard to tell, maybe if we can get an on-board look at it, we'd have a better idea of what happened, but definitely contact made between the two of them. It was already sideways, in fairness, and from Southgate, it wasn't turning in, so that might well be that Adam Southgate has some explaining to do. Just drifted into the back. It was a tiny bit of contact, actually. Maybe a bit of netcode coming into play as well, but Adam Southgate has gained third place, but it will be a bit of a hollow third place, I'd imagine, after that contact. And now here comes Dan Blake. He's already got past Pip Hammond. Of course, they've all gone ahead of Michael Seal, and this could be the third place that Dan Blake picks up on just one lap alone. Looking around the outside of Southgate, though, and gets hung out to dry by Pip Hammond, ever the opportunist. Tries to get up the inside into the penultimate corner, but can't quite make it stick. Nonetheless, 2 places gained in a lap by Dan Blake, and that's exactly what I thought Dan was doing. He just settled in behind them. He could see that they were battling each other. He just sort of sat there and hoped that maybe they'd hold each other up enough that he could just weave his way past them. And now he is up the inside of Adam Southgate, and this could be the third position within a lap. Yes, it is. He's into P3, and the number 1 car is continuing this storming progress through the field. Now, will Southgate fight back, or will they choose to work together here to try and reel in the top 2? Some way behind, nearly 4 seconds behind Power and about 5.5 seconds off the race lead, but we still have just under half the race to go. So, I don't know, it's doable. If Blake can escape, or if he can rally the troops and get them all to work together, you never know. Maybe they could catch those top 2, but it's going to take an awful lot of coordination between the 3 of them. Coordination isn't always strongest suit for a racing driver, but it doesn't look like Southgate is attacking him actually at the moment. He's sat in the wheel tracks, backed off early, so that's a sign to me that Southgate is sort of telling Dan Blake, look, it's all right, just concentrate on your own lines, I'm not going to attack you, let's see what sort of lap times we can set. Well, the leaders on the previous lap were in the low 144s, and in fact both of them set personal best lap times as well, 144.15 for Jacquelet and 44.33 for Kyle Power, and the group behind were all in the 45s and 46s because they were battling. Now that they're not battling, though, it will be interesting to see whether or not Dan Blake's got the speed to drag them up to those top 2, whether maybe they're going to be resigned to fighting over third place for the rest of the race. The 3 of them now battling over this position after a few others have fallen by the wayside. Outside the points, by the way, people like Gavin Johnson not looking like they're going to score points in this one. Gavin is 18th and 14.5 seconds behind the 17th man, Roger Morton. There are the leaders. Now that gap all of a sudden came down. It was a bad lap for Jacquelet. That came down all of a sudden. He must have had a mistake in the second half of the lap. So Kyle Power has now caught Carl Jacquelet in the number 42 car. And this is music to the ears of Blake, Southgate and Hammond, because if these two spend the second half of the race going wheel to wheel, they will start to hold each other up. So that 3.7 second lead that they've got at the moment might start to shrink if they start doing battle for first position. Jacquelet, Sim Racers World TCR AM class champion in the past, and you've already mentioned that Kyle Ward, although a new name to this series, is very much a regular on the karting scene. He's now trying to make his first appearance in the lead of a PDC Racing League race because he's really starting to harry the race leader. And that gap is coming down. I said it was 3.8 seconds back to Blake. It was down to 3.6 at one point down the back straight. And they haven't even really started fighting yet, these two. So that's just natural pace that Blake has got. He's pulling away from Southgate as well. He's 8 tenths, 9 tenths now clear of Southgate. There you can see them in the background as Southgate is busy defending from Pip Hammond, the drivers who have experience in the Toyota Tyres Porsche Championship here in the UK. different classes. Southgate races in the Class A boxers. Pip Hammond has experience in the historic 924 class. Either of them, though, have a wealth of single-seater experience behind them, so they're both doing well to acclimatise, particularly Southgate, actually. Not a regular in the PDC Racing League up to this point. But he's driving very well here in fourth, albeit not quite as quick as Dan Blake. Right, let's compare the lap times then. Jacqueline comes through, and he's slightly faster this time around, I reckon. Yeah, 44 flat for him, a 43.98 for Kyle Power, 2 100s behind him, but Dan Blake was a 43.6, so he's 4 tenths quicker than the leader, and he's 3.4 seconds back. Might need a little bit more than that, but you can't fault him for trying. He keeps on setting fastest lap after fastest lap, and he's doing this all without a slipstream. He's got no one in front of him giving him that tow down the straights. He is just pushing as if his life depends on it, as if his championship depends on it. At this stage, it really doesn't. Third place will be a good result, but it could get better because the leaders are now side by side, and Kyle Power had such a good exit from turn number 4 that he couldn't really afford to back out of it. He gets up the inside of Carl Jacqueline, but Jacqueline with the wider line through the hairpin carries the speed up the hill. It really seems that in these cars, you can run right round the outside of a sweeping corner like that and actually come off the corner quite a bit quicker. That's a bit too wide, though. He locks up into the hairpin, and Kyle Power surely has the move made this time. Jacqueline tries to fight back up the inside into turn number 6. They're wheel to wheel, and this is hemorrhaging time to Dan Blake behind them. This is the worst part of the track to be running side by side because it's narrow, it's tight, and they're really starting to delay each other. Dan Blake taking over a second out of them already in this lap, and they are still wheel to wheel. Jacqueline on the inside, Power on the outside line, but the next 3 corners, in fact the next 4 corners, if you include turn 1, are all right-handers, and Kyle Power will go through. So, new race leader, Kyle Power, in the 666 car, but Carl Jacqueline is not going to want to let him get away with that. He doesn't want to let Power get his head down here, because I think Kyle might have the pace to pull clear of Jacqueline. Either of them, though, want that car in the background to get any closer to them. So let's compare the lap times again then. Power comes through with Jacqueline in second place. Jacqueline, first of all, actually, let's forget the lap times because we've got another battle for the lead into turn 1, but no, Power hangs on. So Power did a 44.7, Jacqueline a 45.3, Dan Blake 43.7, a full second quicker than the race leader, Dan Blake. He's under 2 seconds behind them now. I genuinely think he could do this. We're inside the final 10 minutes of racing, but if this battle is only going to further intensify, because if Kyle Power can't escape, then he's going to have to start defending from Jacqueline pretty soon. Jacqueline will want the win, especially, remember, given the fact these two tangled in race number 1, costing Jacqueline a shot at the podium. Alex Van Gien, meanwhile, further back, is dicing away with car number 64. That's Alex Hall. This is the fight for 11th place. Alex Hall has gained 11 places from where he started. Van Gien is trying to get up the inside into turn number 4. Gets a wheel on the grass, almost runs into the back of him though. And the Vodafone car is in the gravel, and he is just about going to find his way back on track. He'll lose a place, I think, to Michael Seal. Yeah, Michael Seal's gone up the... no, sorry, excuse me, that's a lapped car going up the inside. David Ward, though, is catching them, the pink number 69 car. The front of the field, by the way, I think Jacquelette's back in front of Kyle Power. No, they must be side by side, because, again, look at that, Jacquelette has gone back through, so Carl Jacqueline gets the lead away from Kyle Power. But you know who this is benefiting the most? We've made the point several times. This battling is not the fastest way to get around this Okayama International Circuit, and Dan Blake on his own has cleared the rest of the pack behind. He's 1.8 seconds now clear of Adam Southgate and Pip Hammond's 4th place squabble. And he's almost with them now. 1.5 seconds, 1.4 seconds the gap as they cross the line this time around. And, well, Jacqueline and Power could well have this private battle interrupted by the reigning champion, but there's an awful lot to play for here, because not only is there a race win on the line, but these two had that contact in race 1. Jacqueline would imagine will have felt pretty aggrieved at the way that he was picked upside down by Kyle Power in the first race. I don't think it was intentional by Kyle, but he ran into the back of Carl Jacqueline, tipped him upside down, put Jacqueline out of contention. He didn't score any points, did Carl, in race number 1 as a result, whilst Kyle Power was able to fare a little bit better. He came home in 6th in race 1. So now there's a bit of needle maybe between the two of them, and they're fighting for the lead, and they're trying to keep Dan Blake at bay. That's the fight for 4th between Southgate and Pip Hammond. Here comes the battle for the lead though. Kyle Power back up the inside into the hairpin. This is where they made contact in race 1. Carl Jacqueline gives him a wide berth. Thought he got off the track actually, he disappeared for a second then, but he's back in line behind Power. The lead changes hands once again. Blake is now only 1 second behind them. At the end of the lap, I think all three drivers will be absolutely together, and this might be why there's more urgency between Power and Jacqueline to get to the front and stay there, because they can see Blake coming. The hope is that if you're in the lead when he arrives on the scene, then Dan will maybe preoccupy the second place driver and allow you to pull away. Oh, Kyle Power really pushing hard there out of the Hobbs hairpin at turn 9. Goes on the grass, that hurt his speed off the corner, but he is getting away from Jacqueline a bit here, actually. The gap is over half a second now. It's the biggest it's been for a while, certainly since Power first took the lead. And Jacqueline in the slipstream is going to try and close back in, which he is. He's taken 2/10 out of him just between the final corner and the start-finish line. That's the effect the toe is having. A gap that was nearly 0.6 of a second at the start of the pit straight is down to 0.3 on the apex of turn number 1, and it starts to creep back up again now as they get on the Power through turn 2. Dan Blake on the previous lap did a 43.7, so he was only a 10th quicker than Power on the previous occasion. But quite as disruptive to each other, those two, on that last lap. They held each other up a bit, but not quite as much as they have done previously. David Ward here, having a go up the inside of Alex Van Gien for 9th. So this battle continues to rage on with Alex Hall in front. Hall, remember, was delayed in the contact up at the 8th corner, the Redmond hairpin, earlier on when Freddie Hewitt, amongst others, were caught up in contact. Speaking of the devil, there's Freddie Hewitt just ahead of Michael Seal. So Hewitt's recovered to 8th and Seal to 7th. Both of these two drivers have been off the track at least once, I think in its case twice in this race. Inside the top 10, it's been quite a race of attrition. And so just getting to the finish will almost guarantee you points. We have 19 cars on the lead lap, and remember the top 15 score points. So basically, even if you've had a drama, if you've been able to rejoin without too much damage, there's a good chance you'll score some good points from this race. Up the hill they go into the corner where it all went wrong earlier on. Number 17 there off Freddie Hewitt. Bit of rear wing damage, but I don't think that's hurting him too much. Perhaps a slight reduction in rear downforce, but a lot of the corners here are quite slow, so actually rear downforce is not such an issue. It's when you've got fast sweeping corners, sort of 4th, 5th gear stuff, that's when you really need that rear grip. But the Okayama circuit, a technically demanding track, but not necessarily one with the highest average speed. The leaders, though, into the closing stages of this 30-minute race now, those second race of the season for the PDC Racing League. And Dan Blake with another fastest lap of 1:43.45. He's clearly got some life left in the tyres here towards the end of the race. He told us after race 1 that his tyres had started to go away a little bit by the end of the first race, and that was a much calmer race for him, so you'd have thought he was able to save the tyres more than he has been able to in race number 2 so far. But of course he's being spurred on by the fact that he's had this magnificent charge through the field. Remember, Dan Blake started 16th. Now in 3rd, bearing down on the lead. The top 3 are covered by less than half a second now, and it's side by side for the lead as Dan Blake's Year 1 Racing teammate Carl Jacqueline has a look to the outside of Kyle Power. Dan Blake joins in as well, so this is it. 3-way fight, well and truly joined now for the victory. Final couple of minutes of racing here at the Okayama International Circuit. Dan Blake already has the points lead. A 3rd place finish in this race would retain that championship lead. He does not have to win this race, but I'm almost certain that that thought is not going through his mind right now. He can see he's got the pace to win it. He's just got 2 more drivers than he has to overtake. Will he be able to do it? One of them is his teammate as well, so he would be hoping that Carl Jacqueline might not put up too much of a fight here, but Jacqueline is every bit the championship contender that Dan Blake is this season, I think. He was running in a podium place when he was nerfed off the road in race 1, so there's no reason at all that Carl Jacqueline can't challenge for the title against Dan Blake. Therefore, he knows every point will count. He's not going to just hand over this 2nd position to Dan. Into the hairpin again. 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Power, Jacqueline and Blake, who just set another fastest lap of 1:43.37, which was quite a bit quicker than pole position. He's about 2 and a bit seconds quicker than pole position was earlier on, and he's now making his move to the outside of Jacqueline, is he? Jacqueline defending the inside line, he lets him go. Carl Jacqueline, he saw Dan Blake coming, and rather than run side by side through the corner, they work together and Dan Blake went through. If only I'd have thought of that. What a brilliant idea that was. Two drivers working together to try and gang up on their opposition, and it's working nicely because Dan Blake is in the tow now, and Kyle Power is having to drive down the inside of the track to try and retain the race lead. Dan Blake goes to the outside and the braking into turn number 5. The noses dip at pretty much the same time, and Blake chooses not to try and go right round the outside, instead gets the switch back, but the next corner is a left-hander, and that gives Power the advantage through turn number 6 into turn 7. That's not an overtaking chance, so Blake has to slot back behind him again. And Jacquelet really just keeping a watching brief. That is the perfect team game that Jacquelet's playing here. He's let his teammate go, and now he's not just sitting on the gearbox of Dan Blake, distracting him. He's dropped back by about 3/4 of a second. He's going to let this play out here over the last lap or so, and if he has a chance to join in at the flag, then he will have a go, I'm sure. I think we're about to go on to the final lap this time around, are we? I'll wait for the last lap board is waiting. So Dan Blake versus Kyle Power. Kyle Power looking for his first ever PDC Racing League victory. Dan Blake looking for his 4th and looking to double up here right at the start of Season 2 in a season we said was more competitive than Season 1. The reigning champion is a man on a mission. He's up the inside line from 16th to 1st. He loses it. Oh, I don't believe it. Dan Blake loses control. He's smacked into by Kyle Power, and Carl Jacquelet, who had dropped back to let them settle it between themselves, comes out of it all with the race lead. Oh, what a shame. And Blake's off the road again. He's almost certainly got suspension damage. Through will go Pip Hammond into a podium place. Through goes Adam Southgate into 4th. And Carl Jacquelet, after disaster in race 1 when he was tipped into a spin from a podium place in the dying moments of the race, is going to get the race win. And Kyle Power has contact with Adam Southgate. They're both off the road. Pip Hammond has got himself into 2nd position, and Dan Blake trying to get past the pair of them with a very badly damaged car. And somehow he's back onto the podium. This is astonishing stuff here. We knew it was going to kick off on the final lap of the race. My word, has it kicked off well and truly. And Carl Jacquelet and Pip Hammond must be laughing their socks off as they come round the hairpin for the final time, because they've inherited 1st and 2nd. Dan Blake's gone round again. That car basically won't go round corners, I think, from the amount of suspension damage it has. Kyle Power, the innocent victim that time, there's no doubt about it. Blake just lost it in front of him and Power had nowhere to go. Can he hang on to 3rd place though? Because Adam Southgate also has damage. His car is crabbing its way down the straight towards turn number 8. He's on the outside line. Surely Kyle Power cannot keep Adam Southgate behind him. They're almost making contact through the left-hander. Into the right-hander they go. The race leader and the race winner is about to be Carl Jacquelet, who will take his first ever victory in the PDC Racing League in the most dramatic of circumstances. The checkered flag is out, and Carl Jacquelet is your 2nd winner of Season 2 here at Okayama, and Pip Hammond gets what I think is his first podium. I'll go back and double check that after the race is finished. 3rd place is a drag race to the line, and it's Southgate by 8/100ths of a second who gets 3rd place from Kyle Power. Wow, that was a brilliant battle to the end between those two. Freddie Hewitt is 5th. Goodness only knows how he got into the top 5, but he did. Michael Seal is 6th, and Blake will limp home in 7th. And then it is David Ward in 8th, Alex Van Geen in 9th, and Alex Hall in 10th position. Oh, I think I need to go and have a lie down. That was incredible drama on the final lap. We'll bring you a replay, I'm sure, of what happened down at turn number 1 there between Dan Blake and Kyle Power. But unfortunately for them, it cost them both a shot at the race victory and handed it on a platter to Carl Jacquelet, who had played the game absolutely perfectly. Dale Benison we're watching coming across the line in 12th position, and Roger Morton will be behind him in 13th, then Kevin Boland and Marcus Weller to round out the points, or will they? Gavin Johnson's caught Marcus Weller on the last lap and could snatch a point out of this. Let's have a look at them. Here comes Gavin Johnson, 1 more corner to go, and is he going to be able to slipstream his way past Marcus Weller to the line? I'm not sure he is. He's quicker off the corner, but not that much quicker. The start-finish line comes up reasonably quickly. It's a drag race to the line, and Gavin Johnson, in fact, has his nose in front and is going to go through, I think. Yeah, Gavin Johnson snatches a point right at the death from the unfortunate Marcus Weller, and come the end of the championship, that 1 championship point could come in handy for Season 1's runner-up Gavin Johnson. And breathe. I could barely believe what I just saw. That was fantastic stuff. Carl Jacquelet with the win. Carl's limping home, I think. Freddie Hewitt here. No, he's taking the checkered flag in the 5th position, and I think we're waiting for anyone else to come through. Maybe. I think everyone has that finished, so let's have a look at how he rounded that dramatic race out. Carl Jacquelet with the victory and Pip Hammond second. I did not think I would be saying that about 3 or 4 minutes ago. Adam Southgate gets himself on the podium on the line, beating Kyle Power, who in fairness only had half a car at his disposal, with Freddie Hewitt rounding out the top 5. Michael Seal in 6th, Dan Blake started 16th, got to 1st, and then fell back down to 7th again with that last lap spin. 8th for David Ward, 9th Alex Van Geen, and 10th Alex Hall. 11th was Ian Crosby, 12th Dale Benison, 13th Roger Morton, with Kevin Boland and Gavin Johnson rounding out the point scorers. Johnson getting that point on the exit of the final corner from the unfortunate Marcus Weller, who ends up 16th. 17th for Sam Holman, 18th Alan Toon, Ben Hansey was 19th, Ian Court rounded out the top 20, and then Doug Hamilton and Ben Bateman, the last 2 cars still running at the flag. Lost, unfortunately, quite early on in that race, Ben Bateman, Ed Cooper, Knox, Phil Law, and Kevin McGlone. Well, that was quite exciting, wasn't it? And the championship will be quite open after that, actually, because Dan Blake, if he'd have finished in the podium places, would have retained his championship lead. Whether or not he's been able to do that now, I'm not too sure. But if we have a look at the drivers that finished in the top 5, let's see. We've got Carl Jacquelet, who didn't score points in race 1. Pip Hammond, who didn't score points in race 1. Adam Southgate did, though. Adam Southgate was 7th in race 1, 3rd in race 2. But remember, Dan Blake's had a 7th and a 1st, so he should still be ahead of him. Kyle Power has had a 6th and a 4th. That's been quite a consistent night. And Michael Seal, 6th in that race, but he didn't get points in the first race. So I reckon it's going to be either Adam Southgate or Dan Blake that leads the championship. I can't count to save my life, so I'm going to wait for official confirmation of that later on tonight, and we'll update you, of course, ahead of the next rounds of the championship next Friday night at Alton Park. But it's going to be close, and as I made the point, we're already a 5th of the way through the championship. It's only a 10-race season, so early points are quite significant, even though we've only completed the first 2 races of the season. So here is a replay of what happened to Dan Blake. So he's up the inside, too late on the brakes. And I'm a bit surprised, actually, at that, because he had the pace quite clearly to get past Kyle Power. I'm surprised he didn't maybe wait until a bit later in the lap to take the big risk. Lost control there, boom. There was nothing Power could do to miss him. Straight into the side of him, and then Carl Jacquelet. I would love to see the onboard from Carl Jacquelet's car, because the car had been a big gap on the inside there. He probably couldn't see for laughing at the time. So how he found a way through there, I do not know. But Carl Jacquelet, yeah, here we go. He's miles back. He's dropped almost a full second behind them, either to try and help his teammate and let Dan Blake attack without having to defend, or maybe he knew what we didn't and he knew this was going to go wrong. Hit the brakes. You can see Blake on the inside, just locks the rear brakes, sideways. Kyle Power thinks his money's in here. He thinks, oh, that's great. I'll cut back underneath him. Couldn't avoid him. And then at this point, Carl Jacquelet is going to have an accident. He's going to run straight into the back of them and just finds a gap on the inside, and he barely has to take to the grass either. That I thought he might have had to cut the corner to avoid them, but no, there was just about room for a Skip Barber Formula 2000 car on the inside. Jacquelet gets through, take a dramatic race victory in number 2 of the PDC Racing League. If the racing continues like this for the rest of the season, I'll have no voice left by the time we go back to real-world motor racing later in the year. That was a truly amazing race. Again next week, remember, at Alton Park. We'll then visit Laguna Seca, Donington Park, and the Charlotte Roval. To correct myself as well, I said earlier on that Alton Park was the only circuit that's been retained from the Season 1 calendar. That's not actually true, because, of course, Donington Park played host to our season decider. Season 1, not the last round of this championship, but it is back on the calendar on the 5th of June. The Roval at Charlotte will play host to the final rounds. So, let's see. We've got somebody, I think, waiting for a chat, but I've no idea who, unfortunately, because I can't see them from here. So we'll see who it is, and we might have one post-race interview. I think it's Carl Jacquelet and Pip Hammond. It might be Adam Southgate, possibly. Let's see if we can find out. No, never mind. They're gone. They heard us talking about them. They've disappeared. Never mind. That might be it then, unfortunately. I'm not sure we're going to have time to have a chat, or we're not going to have time to find our podium finishers, because they haven't come to find us. Jacqueline, Pip Hammond, probably too busy laughing amongst themselves at what happened on that final lap. And Adam Southgate will be quite happy, actually, as well, because he survived his own bit of contact down at turn number 4 to survive third place. There is the calendar for the rest of the PDC Racing League. We're back again next Friday night at 8 o'clock for rounds 3 and 4 at Alton Park, a completely different circuit, a very narrow circuit, waiting in the Cheshire Parkland. And that is going to be a mega pair of races around there as well, I'd imagine. Then Laguna Seca on the 29th of May, Donington Park on the 5th of June. On the 12th of June, we're in America again. The Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Roval, playing host to our championship decider. I think probably all we've got time for. There's still no sign of our podium drivers. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in to watch the racing tonight probably has better things to do than sit and listen to us waffle on all night. So we will leave you in peace. But thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the racing. I'm pretty sure you probably have. Our thanks to everyone who has worked hard behind the scenes between seasons 1 and 2 as well to up extra interest and support in the championship. Gavin and Pip have worked really hard to make sure that season 2 is an even bigger success than season 1, which I think it probably will be. Thanks as well to our series sponsors, PDC, RS Components, Pingin and SR Electrical. On Racing TV as well, Graham Sessford and the team who have put together a brilliant broadcast for us. We'll be back again to do it all again next week at Alton Park, next Friday night. Make sure you don't miss it, and keep an eye on the Yearone Racing TV social media pages for all of the sim racing action coming your way over the next few weeks. My name's been Andy McEwen. Thank you very much for joining us here at Okayama. Until next time, goodbye.